Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the Mafex Marvel GAMBIT from X-Men. I know this figure came out a while ago. I didn't get it at the time, and I haven't been able to track one down for a good price, but I finally got one. My brother got it for me, so I have it to review. And you guys might know this, you might not. I'm a big GAMBIT fan. I like the character design. And we haven't had a whole lot of good figures of him. They've made about 1,000 of them for Marvel Legends. Not too many that were actually very good. The Revoltech one's pretty wonky. This one, I think, is probably the best option, at least based on promo images. And we're going to see if the review holds up. So, let's go ahead and get him off the stand and take a closer look. I will mention, before we get into the rest of the review, they did share artwork of the character with his red hair. And so that's going to that's going to lead me to my first question of the day. For GAMBIT, do you prefer the brown hair or the red hair? For me, red hair every time. It's not like I hate the brown hair, but I definitely prefer the red hair. Okay, and then my second question of the day. As you might have noticed by now, his jacket is cloth. How do you guys feel about a cloth jacket? If it's done well, which this one is, by the way. Are you okay with that, even if you are usually anti-cloth, as I am? Well, we'll see when we do the review, for my opinion. But I'm thinking I probably would have preferred plastic, but this looks all right. Okay, let's go ahead and get into the taters, the meat, all the good stuff. This guy stands, not counting his hair poof, about 16 centimeters, a little bit more with some hair poof in there. For scaling purposes, the 16 will be good. It's going to be about 6 3/8, not counting the hair poof, a little bit over 6.5 for the poof. So scaling wise, that should be good. We're going to find out. We're going to do a few different comparisons here. Here he is up against a Darwin, which is Marvel Legends scale. Of course, this Darwin figure is not as tall as Darwin should be, but that's a standard Marvel build, so it seems like they're in scale. Here he is up against a War Machine, which would be suitable for a Marvel vs. Capcom display, which I'm guessing a lot of people want to do. So it seems a little bit tall, just ever so slightly tall. Here he is up against a Capcom, Jada Fei Long. He's a little bit taller than Fei Long, which makes sense. So War Machine might just be a little short. GAMBIT might be a little tall, but either way, it's close enough. All right, so we don't have to do another question of the day. So let's just get into the aesthetic. I'll start with the jacket. I normally don't like clothing on figures. It's restrictive, it's never to scale, and it always looks weird. They have, however, done an exceptional job with their cloth. It looks really nice. The scaling is still weird, like it looks like burlap in scale with GAMBIT, but it's not that bad. Like I've seen way worse, so that's okay. The stitching that they did around the lapel, you know, over here, it's especially a little bit weird. It's not great, but it's good enough. Inside stitching and seams and pleats and hems and everything, it's not gonna be perfect, and it's not, but it's probably the best clothing I've seen at this scale. It's pretty darn good. You can see the strap around the wrist is pretty nicely done. That looks good. Up here we have the way oversized rivet, and I can never remember what those are called, but whatever, the straps up there. So yeah, it's not perfect, but as far as these things go, they did a really, really good job. It's very wired. I'll get to that in the articulation section, but it's really good. Would I prefer plastic? Probably. If we had some interchangeable windswept and non-windswept pieces, maybe. This kind of works. As far as clothing goes, I'm very okay with this. Now, as far as the rest of the aesthetic goes, we have the metallic pink, metallic light blue, metallic dark blue, slightly metallic black, more pink, more of the light blue. It all looks pretty good. Yeah, there are lots of people customizing this to paint it to look even nicer, and you can definitely do that, especially since Mafex doesn't have the best quality control given the high price point. You can see around the pink spots, it's not super clean. You can see some silver in there. You can see some black not where it's supposed to be. Same thing around the collar. It's not perfect, but it does look pretty good, I'll say. And then for the face, it's very, very stylized. He doesn't have a whole lot of facial bones as you would normally see them in a really realistic sculpt, but it does look good. The paint job is super clean. The eyes are clean. I like it. The hair is brown, but it is shaded with black, so that looks nice. Good sculpt for the hair. All in all, I think this is a really aesthetically pleasing figure. They did, when they showed it originally, they showed him without his jacket on to show the body, and it looked super goofy. I think that was mostly the angle and the posing. I'll take his jacket off later and we'll see. But as it is, it looks good. The proportioning is not perfect. He does have really long arms and really long lower legs. but you don't notice it very apparently. And once you pose him, it's not super obvious. So aesthetically, I'm very pleased with this. It looks really nice. It's probably, well, let's see, of the ones I've seen in person, it's definitely the best of the Mafex Marvel figures. And based on photos too, I think it might be. So yeah, it's really good. I'm gonna give the aesthetic rating a 9. It's pretty good, even at the high price point. This looks really good. It's gonna look good on a shelf. All right, now for accessories. We do have the neutral head that comes on him in the package. Then we get the one where he's kind of angry looking. Again, very stylized, but still a good sculpt. You get the 2 fist hands that come on him in the package, then a whole slew of other hands for poses and accessories and whatnot. Plenty of options there. Of course, you get his staff. It's basically a stick of plastic with some lines on it. So there's not a lot to say there, but it is there. You get it, that's good. As far as card effects go, you get 2 card effects for his hands, like just little ones. One's a double card. It's not as finessed as it could be, kind of wonky to get it in his fingers, but it's okay. Then you get a single card with a swoosh. That's okay. None of those cards have any print on them. No card face or anything like that, which does bother me at this price point. You also get a fire swoosh for either end of his staff. Those are nicely done. And then you get 2 large card effects with the big sweeping swooshes and whatnot, and those look really good. However, the cards are oversized and still not printed, so that looks pretty weird. Like, they're cool for photos, and if you're doing like forced perspective, that's fine, but they are definitely oversized and kind of weird, but still pretty cool. And then lastly, you get the display stand that Mafex does include, which I love, and then some other acrylic pieces for posing purposes. So yeah, it's a good spread of accessories. The only thing I can really think of that would be nicer is some cards that aren't charged up. I think that would be really cool, or an effect where it's like cards that he's like shuffling from hand to hand. That would be super cool. And then just the paint on the cards themselves. So I'm gonna go 8 out of 10, just because there is a little bit of lack of finesse in some of these accessories. But you know what? I'm gonna go 9. This is a good spread. It's a really good spread. I think what he's lacking is made up for by the quality of what is there overall. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the articulation. So what we're gonna do to do that is take his jacket off. And his hands will probably come off. Yeah, okay. So to take his jacket off, it just pops right off the back. And I want to talk about the jacket first, even though this isn't technically articulation. When you have cloth, soft goods on figures, you need to worry about wiring, and their wiring is very nice. The downside is there's no place to actually connect it to a hard spot on the figure, so it's only wired against itself. You're going to have to be kind of clever in how you get it to bend. And before I get into the wiring even, I want to mention the lapel is not sewn down, neither is the collar. It's just flat. So whatever folding you need to do, you have to do with the wiring, which can be a little cumbersome, and that's a little bit annoying. But they do have wire running all the way up from the very corner, all the way up to to right here, and up here, and into the collar. So basically the whole trim of the piece, and it goes back along here and all the way up here. The entire outline of the jacket is wired, and it works surprisingly well. As you can see, it still has the windswept look that I have from when it was on him, and it looks good. The only real downside I have for this thing is that the lapel and collar are kind of a pain in the ass because there's no wire at the neck here, and you really needed that, or at least it should have been sewn to be folded a little bit or something for both the lapel and the collar. They tend to want to just stick straight out, and that's not great. But as far as this kind of jacket goes, they nailed it. It's not super bulky, and it does pose pretty well. All right, so let's go ahead and get into his actual articulation. We'll put his hands back on, and I do want to put him in that neutral pose and see how he looks. All right, because when they showed him, I think they had him leaning back, and like his shoulders were up and his head was forward. Yeah, it was kind of like this when they first showed him. And it was like, he's not shaped like a human. His shoulders are way high and he has no neck. But I think that we can probably do something about that. If we pose him with a little bit of nuance, just a little bit, it brings him right back into looking like a human, and I am okay with that. And you can, of course, adjust his shoulders up and down and neck however you want, but I think that looks just fine. He is lanky as heck, though. Arms go a little bit too low, and then legs are too long, but it poses away pretty well. Okay, so as far as articulation goes, you guys are going to love this. Ball pegs aplenty in the neck, and you can just move it however you want. And if you pop the head off, it's easier to see. The neck moves around on its own ball peg really well. They did do the curved ball peg from the neck to the head, which is not something I'm a fan of. I don't think it often works as well as they intend it to work, and it's kind of a pain in the ass. Once it gets stuck sideways, you have to pop the head off and finagle it. So it's annoying. It kind of takes away from the double ball peg nature of being able to just do whatever you want, however you want. Once it gets sideways, you're kind of screwed. So you have to take it apart and redo it. But you do get all the range you could want. Double ball pegs always win. For the shoulder, it's not really a slip joint. I believe there's a ball peg that holds the whole butterfly piece in place. You can't really see in there, but I'll show you the range, and that's really all that matters. You can drop the shoulder down, you can drop the shoulder up, which isn't dropping, forward, back. It's not great as an actual butterfly. It doesn't have a whole lot of horizontal movement, but you get some. It's definitely enough. So yeah, functionally, it's kind of like a figure arts figure with the big ball socket in the shoulder, so you can just move the whole thing around. And that's essentially what it is. It could be a little bit more finesse, but it works well enough. I'm okay with it. And then for the shoulder itself, get the arm up to horizontal. He does have slender arms, especially at the shoulder. In this case, it's a good thing because of the jacket. If you want to have him without the jacket, it could look better, but also you can probably pose it away. But you can't get the arm up to better than horizontal using all of the joints in there. Of course, you get your full rotation. Bicep swivel is fine. Double jointed elbow works nicely. Ball hinge wrists, no problem there. He does get a little disjointed looking depending on if you're being careful while posing or not, just because of the big cuts here. Again, you can probably pose that away. Diaphragm joint leans back pretty well. Not a whole lot, but definitely enough. Leaning forward, you get almost nothing. I don't know why that's a thing in the last couple years, but it definitely is. Leaning to the side works a little bit, not great. And then rotation's actually not bad. It looks like it wouldn't work, but it does. For the lower waist, he leans back a little bit more. Leans forward a lot, so I guess that makes up for it. It's weird, but it works, so I'll take it. You should be able to make it work when posing. And then when you put them both together, leaning forward and back is fine. To the side, again, you're going to get it mostly down here, but that works, so I'll take it. And of course, you do get a waist twist. For the hips, unfortunately, they did do the drop down, the hinged ball pegs. His aren't super loose, so it doesn't really bother me too much, but it's just so not necessary. But let's see what kind of range we get. Out to the side. It's so not necessary. Look at, okay, so complex hip joint, still not full-on splits. $100 figure, roughly. This guy, basic ball socket, perfect splits. I've been saying it for years, and I'm going to keep saying it. These hinged hips are not necessary. You do not need them, and they don't usually work. They never work as well as they're intended to. You can't even kick high. Look, that's as high as he can kick with the hinge all the way down. So that's a bummer, big time. And then going back, you don't get any range. Fei Long at $25 has better range in every direction. Very unfortunate. Even the thigh swivel's better on Fei Long, although Gambit's pretty solid here. Double jointed knees work well enough. Don't get that much range out of them. You can kind of play with them to get a little bit more, but the way the knee joint is done, that's about it. It's only going to be a little bit better than 90, and you can really see how long his lower legs are here to throw off the proportioning. So knees aren't great, hips aren't great. Ankles are ball hinge. They're way too loose, unfortunately, and they don't have the best range. They have enough range, but it's not the best. And you can get a really nice ankle rocker. And the toe hinge it's loose, but it's acceptable. It's okay. So his articulation is solid from the waist up. From the waist down, it's average at best, and definitely could be a whole lot better. Especially considering this figure at $25 poses better, I think, at every joint. Maybe not the lower torso, and maybe not the neck. But that's because Gambit's skinny. So yeah, it's like Mafex doesn't often earn really their price tag, but they're close enough that I think most people let them slide. They kind of win with the accessories. Anyway, the articulation on this guy, I'm going to give it only a 7. If a $25 figure can beat it and you're this skinny, you've done something wrong. But the figure as a whole is a really nice release. It is probably my favorite personal release from Mafex. And as far as the review goes, I think it's definitely up there as one of the better ones I've handled. Definitely one of the better ones I've reviewed. And I think if you're interested in getting something like this, you probably should. If you can find one for a good price, grab it. Although they do like to do a lot of reissues. But yeah, I'm very satisfied with this release. Not perfect. Definitely some places for improvement, but it is darn solid. I'm going to give it an overall rating of 9. It's pretty good. Even at the high price point, this looks really good. It's going to look good on a shelf. I do think the limited articulation, though it's not bad by any means, it just could be a whole lot better without it costing any more and probably costing less. So I have to count that. But yeah, it's a strong release. I think it's a great addition to any Marvel or Marvel vs. Capcom or just cool figure collection. So there it is, guys. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, a thumbs down will do. And if you haven't subscribed, you might want to. I have new videos almost every single day and thousands already on the channel. So make sure you come back for all of that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.